Hi, and welcome to Not Just Talk Therapy Podcast. We are your hosts.
This is Leslie, a holistic psychotherapist.
And I'm Brittany. I'm the girl next door.
Talk therapy is great, but we believe it's not enough. We examine the body, mind, and soul and challenge you to think differently, see things in a holistic way to approach and resolve life's challenges.
Join us for a fun and meaningful conversation and learn tips and insights on how to approach life's complex issues. We are so excited for you to tune in.
Hi everyone, this is Leslie, and this is episode 6. Moving on, how to let go of the past. This is an extension of episode 2 where I shared my life story. This is chapter 2 into my life, and I explain why we hold on to the past and how to let it go with 3 tips. Ever wondered why you tend to hold on to things? For example, say you don't trust people. Let's say someone you were close to betrayed you in a severe way, and you lost their trust. Perhaps this carried over in your life and that event burned you. So now you have issues trusting others in general because of the trust-breaking event that happened months or years ago. And you tell yourself and others, I have trust issues. I don't trust people. Or maybe you're cautious with making new friends. Let's say someone criticized you or talked behind your back, affecting your reputation in some way. And this hurts you, and it takes you a while to become close to anyone new because of that event. So the story you tell yourself and others is, I have a hard time making friends. I'm sure we can all relate. We all have stories we tell ourselves, stories from past events that affect the behaviors and habits we have today. And we hold on to these stories and events and repeat these over and over in our minds. Here are some examples that I hear a lot from clients. I always have trouble keeping a relationship, or I always attract the wrong partner, or I always get sick every winter, or I'll never get that position I want. These were all stories from the past that we hold on to. So why do we hold on to these events? Why do we hold on to the past? We hold on to things because we are emotional beings. It has to do with the way we link emotion to information. In other words, feeling certain emotion gives us information. And we hold on to events that have stronger emotional ties and do not remember events that aren't tied to any emotions. For example, a certain event like 9/11 or the tsunami that hit Japan in March 2011. Most of us probably can remember what we were doing when those huge events happened. Can you say the same for August 27th, 2015? Probably not, unless that's your birthday. Your memory is not as detailed when it comes to a random day, but it's very vivid on a date in the past that's tied to something very emotional. We hold on to the past because we are addicted to the emotions and feelings linked to those events. Now, some of you may say, what? We are addicted to emotions? Yes. As we are emotional beings, we are addicted to our emotions. I'll explain that further in a little bit. We also hold on to the past because it gives us something we need. So I want you to think about that. Whatever you're holding on to is giving you something you need. Be it positive or negative, it's giving you something you need. And negative emotions are linked to our needs. And I'll also explain this further in a little bit. We have 6 basic human needs. This is universal across all races and all cultures. The 6 needs in no specific order are 1. Certainty, 2. Uncertainty, 3. Significance, 4. Love and connection, 5. Growth, and 6. Contribution. Again, these are not in any order or chronological order. I'll dive more into this with Brittany in a future episode. Many of us get stuck in the past because of our need for certainty. We all want to feel certain that we can avoid pain. And moving on from the past means stepping into the unknown, which can mean pain, right? We don't want that. We hold on to things because it serves us in some way, either good or bad. It serves a need. You may believe the past protects you. You believe holding on to the painful experience protects you from letting it happen again, which is an irrational thought. Going back to the trust example I mentioned before, holding on to the past event that gave you the belief that people aren't trustworthy seemingly protects you from being hurt again. Because if you already chose to not trust someone, they can't break your trust, right? That seems rational in your mind, but it produces irrational behaviors because you aren't able to closely connect with anyone due to your trust issues. Do you see how this limits you? In episode 2, I shared an overview of my life story. And from that, I will share an event in more detail today that had strong emotional ties for me, and you'll see why it was hard for me just to let that event go. From my crazy childhood, there was a theme that stuck with me into adulthood: unfairness. Given the unfair treatment my parents gave between my brother and I. Anytime I felt things were unfair to me or someone I loved, it triggered painful memories from my childhood, and it made me very angry. A few years ago, I was working in a very toxic environment. I loved what I did, but my boss was mentally unstable. One summer night, we entertained an alumnus with dinner and drinks. Later in the evening, my boss put his hand on my leg and caressed my face, pulling my hair back, and he said some uncomfortable shit. He then put his hand on my back and I got up and left. The next day, I filed a complaint. My boss later apologized and promised to change, but I told him I would be distant to protect myself from him. The following year, after the event, turned into hell for me, as he passive-aggressively did some crazy things to get me back for not working close to him, even though he knew his sexual harassment had changed our working dynamic. He acted as if he was innocent because he had apologized, but that's not how the world works. About a year later, my boss got rid of my job. Not due to performance, I was just given a huge raise and praised for the work I'd done. Not due to budget cuts, we just got a budget increase. It was due to spitefulness and vengeance. I was so angry. Thankfully, the graduate students I worked with revolted with the loss of my role and went to the top to demand my boss be fired. It worked. He lost his job, but unfortunately, I could not get my job back. So I went to lawyers to find justice, as this was wrongful termination. And with the Me Too movement happening at the time, I found a lawyer who saw a chance in winning this. To clarify, I thought everything that had happened was unfair. Even if my boss eventually lost his job, what had happened to my job was total BS. The lawyer worked with me for months, and we built up a case for wrongful termination. But in the end, my lawyer added up the deposition costs and estimated how much we would win, minus his fee. He just told me it wasn't worth the fight. My heart dropped. I was enraged again, full of anger. I wanted justice for what happened. I wanted closure. Nothing ever happened. I never got any closure. The event triggered a lot from my childhood. The unfairness and injustice from what happened felt eerily similar to the unfairness of how my mom treated my brother and how my brother got away with things, and how I was abused more. I had so much anger inside of me from all the wrong that had happened, and this was triggered from the unfair treatment between my brother and I that I held on to. If I didn't have any unfairness issues from childhood, I may have reacted differently to the event that happened from my boss. There's a powerful psychological payoff for holding on to the past. When you blame external circumstances for your problem, you can then dump all your resentment and angers onto others. The belief is, you or that event are the cause of where I am today. It's being the victim. I was being an angry victim and blaming others for where I was in life. And one day I just realized how useless that was. I knew I was supposed to move on and let go. I had moved far away, I started a new business, I renewed my life, but I was still holding on to pain and anger, and I realized that was holding me back. Returning back to the 6 human needs I mentioned before, I held on to pain and anger because it met the needs of certainty and growth for me. Because I had been through adversity in my childhood, pain and anger was all I knew and understood. But the pain and anger were a catalyst in pushing me forward to change my life, to help others, and to grow and become the person I am today. So subconsciously, those negative emotions benefited me. They drove my purpose in life, but they were also holding me back. I was addicted to the pain and anger as well, as it met the needs of certainty and growth for me. As mentioned before, we become addicted to emotions, as we know what to expect from them. And emotional addiction is when our body becomes dependent on our own chemical responses. This cycle changes the reward center in our brains. So even if the emotion makes us miserable, the rush of neurotransmitters like dopamine and serotonin are the reward, as it links to meeting our needs. In order to break an emotional addiction, you have to become conscious of your own patterns. So Brittany and I will discuss this in a future episode. From my example, I held on to the past as the emotions of anger and pain pushed me into action, but it came with cost. And eventually I realized holding on was no longer benefiting me as I thought it was. So I had to work really hard on letting go of my past, even if I had no closure. And that was so hard to do. And letting go is scary because the unknown is scary. Eckhart Tolle's book, The Power of Now, helped me to realize holding on to the past was keeping me in the past and not enjoying the present moment. I rewired my brain to see the benefits of being in the present than enjoying any rewards it was getting from holding on to pain and anger. Easy to do. Like I mentioned before, our body becomes dependent on chemical responses from certain emotions, so it's very difficult to just let go or move on. But it is possible. So like I mentioned before, we all have stories. And you heard my story. My story that I was holding on to was life is unfair. So think about the story that you hold on to from the past. I want to leave you today with 3 tips on how to let go of the past. You may want to write these down as I include some important questions for you. Number 1, clarify what you are holding on to. Maybe you're holding on to a failed relationship. Maybe it's a hurtful event or painful words from a friend or family member. Maybe it's a fight with someone you love. What are you holding on to, and why are you holding on to it? Then ask yourself, what will I gain from letting this go? What will I gain from letting this go? And who am I without this anymore? Imagine, who are you without this anymore? Gaining self-awareness is key here. I help my clients dig deep into discovering what they're holding on to and why they're holding on to it. Most of the time it's subconscious, so this can be hard to determine right now, but just think about the questions I just asked you. Clarifying why it's necessary to let go is important as it sets the goal to release it. This gives you purpose. Your purpose will serve you as emotional drive when you feel like giving up. And you're going to face setbacks and challenges, but if you have a strong enough reason and purpose that drives you, you will stay focused and dedicated. Second tip is acknowledge it's time to move on and work with your subconscious mind here. So first, you need to decide that you're ready to let go. Does holding on serve you anymore? Decide what you want to let go of the past, and then tell yourself it's time to let go. Talk to your subconscious. Tell your subconscious mind you're ready to heal and move on. If you do this daily, you're slowly reconditioning your mind that you're moving on, and the painful past experience begins to diminish. By acknowledging a change in action you plan to take, you are in control, and your subconscious mind is listening. And the third final tip, identify the emotions linked to the past event. Think of the emotion you feel when you think of that event. Are you feeling anger, sadness, pain, guilt, shame? What are you feeling? Like I mentioned before, we become addicted to our emotions. We grow accustomed to certain emotions, even negative ones, and these impact us daily. We can live in negative emotional loops without even realizing it. So I want you to consider the emotion you're holding on to that's linked to the past event, and ask yourself, how does this emotion serve me? And what need does this emotion meet? What need does this emotion meet? Remember, the 6 needs are this again. 1, certainty. 2 is uncertainty. 3 is significance. 4 is love and connection. 5 is growth. And 6 is contribution. So how does this emotion serve me? And what need does this emotion meet? This can be difficult to pinpoint right now, but just think about it and write this down somewhere. Every client I work with, we discuss the 6 needs, and this helps my clients determine which needs drives their behavior and habits, including holding on to the past. For my personal story, the anger and pain motivated me to change and to grow, but also made me an angry person. Eventually I had enough. I hated being in that negative loop. I knew I'd be a lighter, happier person without that thought or emotion. So I followed steps 1 and 2 and consciously chose to not get angry the next time something felt unfair. It was not easy to do, but I watched myself. Like I was hovering over my body, I watched how I reacted, and I chose to stay neutral. We always have the power of choice, and I actively chose to not get angry, and this slowly rewired my brain by building new neural pathways. I can get into more detail about this in a later episode. The whole field of neuroplasticity, which is the ability to rewire and change our brains, is so fascinating. I've helped several clients and friends with this and helping them to let go of the past and let go of negative emotional loops and more. So to recap, step 1, clarify what you're holding on to. Step 2, acknowledge it's time and tell yourself and your subconscious that you are ready to let it go. Do this daily and you are reconditioning your mind. And step 3, identify the emotion linked to the event and the need it serves you. All of this brings you self-awareness, which is so empowering. You can control this. You have the power to let the past go, so you can move on. So I hope you found this helpful today. I know I shared a lot. It's hard to go deep into this topic without making this too long. If you would like some support with this process, I'm happy to work with you one-on-one or answer any questions you may have. You can reach me on our website or read through our show notes or DM us at mastering.your.mind on Instagram. And if you haven't listened to episode 2, which is my personal story, and episode 4, Brittany's personal story, I highly encourage you to do so.
Thank you for listening to today's show. If you love what you heard, please subscribe, write us a 5-star review on iTunes, and follow us on Instagram at mastering.your.mind.
You can find more information from the show on our show notes on our website, notjusttalktherapypodcast.com, all spelled out. And if you're interested in working with us one-on-one, our contact info is also on our website.
Thank you again, and see you on next week's episode.